Hello everybody and welcome to the Thursday edition of Video Clips, and today I have two issues I want to talk about. And the first one is another study showing that folic acid pills are useless and possibly harmful. And I guess I just wonder sometimes, how much evidence do we have to have about the uselessness of these vitamin pills before the public starts to make different buying decisions? I really feel that one of the reasons why the supplement business still continues to do so well is because it offers an alternative to traditional medicine, which more and more people are moving away from. They're starting to find out how harmful that is. But making a choice between two bad choices, I don't think that's where we should be. How about if we choose optimal, which is none of the above? In other words, let's stop treating symptoms with stuff, whether it's medical stuff like drugs or naturopathic and more natural substances like supplements. So anyhow, I'll just tell you a little bit about the study. A recent meta-analysis looked at the use of folic acid to lower homocysteine levels and prevent coronary artery disease and events. And the studies that were included in the meta-analysis were ones in which folic acid worked to lower homocysteine levels. Nobody's ever debated that, by the way, that you can lower homocysteine levels with folic acid. The problem was, in conclusion, I'm going to read this to you, the researchers said, in conclusion, folic acid had no effect on cardiovascular disease or stroke. However, analysis of within-trial results stratified by baseline homocysteine suggests potential harm in those with high homocysteine at baseline. This interaction may have important implications for recommendations of folic acid supplement use. In the meantime, folic acid supplementation should not be recommended as a means to prevent or treat cardiovascular disease or stroke. So this is not the first meta-analysis that has arrived at this conclusion. There are actually studies that have shown that folic acid increases the rate of progression of atherosclerosis by taking folic acid supplements. So, but the point in this one that I think was important is that it appears that the higher the homocysteine levels were at the start of the study, the more risk was involved in taking folic acid supplements. And of course, the patients with high homocysteine levels are often the ones who are most subject to advice to take folic acid. So the bottom line is this reductionist theory of health, which is we take a symptom and we try to treat it with stuff, either drugs or supplements. It just doesn't work. We have got to focus on the whole person and addressing the health of the whole person through diet and lifestyle change. Okay, the other thing I want to talk about is it's flu season, and I'm seeing all of the ads on TV for flu vaccines, and you can go to the Health Briefs online library and read some of the articles I've written on the inadvisability of getting a flu vaccine and how the government and the World Health Organization actually have just made stuff up to try to coerce people into getting a flu vaccine. It doesn't stop there. There's a drug called Tamiflu that you probably have heard of that is supposed to shorten the duration of the flu and relieve symptoms, and there's a whole scandal about Tamiflu, just like there's a whole scandal about flu vaccines. And so I have notes because I want to remember to tell you all of this right. There are a few things I want to read that are quotes, but the whole thing began in 2009 when Tom Jefferson asked for data in order to update the Cochrane collaboration's review of flu drugs, and which was originally published in 2003. Roche, the maker of Tamiflu, responded by asking Jefferson to sign a confidentiality agreement saying that he wouldn't publish all of the data. He, of course, refused to do it. Then the company decided not to provide the data, stating that another group had requested it and they thought it'd be a conflict of interest to give it to both. I don't really understand that. Either did the researchers who were involved in writing this article. Roche also told Jefferson that its study results had already been given to regulatory authorities. So when Cochrane updated its review in the absence of the data on Tamiflu, it was published in the British Medical Journal, by the way, and that's where all this information came from. It reported that because 8 of the 10 studies on which claims of effectiveness were never published for Tamiflu, the evidence couldn't be relied on. Cochrane also reported that 2 of the studies were funded by Roche and conducted by their employees and expert paid by Roche. And the review concluded, quote, paucity of good data has undermined previous findings for prevention of complications from influenza. Independent randomized trials to resolve these uncertainties are needed. Well, it's the end of 2012 and Roche still hasn't made the results of the trials available. So, and I think this is so cool, the British Medical Journal set up a website And it's in this article, which will be posted in the Health Briefs online library shortly, on which is posted all of the emails and letters concerning Roche's refusal to provide data. I think just putting this all out there in the light of day is the best thing that we can do. The postings include a letter from the editor of the British Medical Journal to board member John Bell that states, quote, I love this, Tamiflu has been a huge commercial success for Roche. Billions of pounds of public money have been spent on it, and yet the evidence on its effectiveness and safety remains hidden from appropriate and necessary independent scrutiny. I am appealing to you as an internationally respected scientist and clinician and a leader of clinical research in the UK to bring your influence to bear on your colleagues on Roche's board. Well, it hasn't happened yet. In addition to the correspondence with Roche, some other information posted on the site that's interesting is from Cochrane to the World Health Organization, asking how its review had led the World Health Organization to include Tamiflu on its essential medicines list. In other words, this data has never been seen by anybody, yet the World Health Organization is endorsing the drug. And another letter is posted that was sent to the Centers of Disease Control, wondering why an article posted on its website this year titled CDC Recommendations for Influenza Antiviral Medications Remain Unchanged. In other words, the CDC is aware of this whole scandal, and yet it still continues to endorse Tamiflu. Jefferson told the British Medical Journal, and Jefferson's the one who originally asked for the data, quote, despite this, the World Health Organization and CDC have been extensively promoting the drug. World Health Organization has made Tamiflu one of the essential drugs, so it sits next door to aspirin and penicillin, cortisone, he said. The CDC has extensively recommended the use of Tamiflu, and as you know, governments worldwide have stockpiled under the advice, essentially, of World Health Organization. So this is not the first time that the CDC and the World Health Organization have found themselves in the middle of a scandal. The same thing happened with the flu vaccine a few years ago. Going on, Jefferson says politicians have ignored the problem and have not demanded accountability from their own decision makers, from regulators, and from industry. So if you want to go to the website again, the website will be posted in the article in the Health Briefs online library. But I'd like to see more of this going on. I think that transparency is a great idea. Let's just post all of the correspondence and the nastiness that goes on in the medical field and the refusal to come up with information and just all of the bad things that are happening. Let the public see it for themselves. I think the good thing right now is people don't have to take my word for it. You can go online and do searches and find this stuff yourself. I mean, I'm happy to provide it to you and I make it easier and more accessible, but the bottom line is you can look at this stuff yourself and start to see how corrupt the medical profession is. And of course, there are people that aren't corrupt. I don't want to indict the whole profession. I'm talking about as an institution, as a group. It's really scandalous what's going on. So all of this to say, don't get a flu shot. That's my first advice. If you get the flu, you'll most likely survive, but don't take Tamiflu. There's absolutely no evidence that we can get a hold of, at least at this point in time, showing it's effective. And I have to believe that if Roche had that evidence, they would have gladly turned it over at the very beginning of this whole thing, rather than working so hard and enduring so much controversy in order to keep it from the public eye. All right, that's it for this week. Have a wonderful day and weekend, and I will be back to you next Tuesday, and of course pass this on to anybody who you think should pay attention to it.